Hey guys, I hope you had a great weekend. Make sure you've completed warm-up number 8 and make sure this is in your warm-up section so that you'll have it for the warm-up quiz. All of the work that you did on Friday or that you did over the weekend we'll go over tomorrow, including your quiz correction, so just hold on to all of that and we'll go over it in more detail tomorrow. So we've been focusing on how to solve quadratic equations, and so far we've worked with graphing, factoring, and square roots. So today we're going to look at the quadratic formula. And we are skipping section 10.4. We'll come back to it later this week. We're going to go on to section 10.5 so that I can be there with you when we go over 10.4 because it's a little different and the quadratic formula is a little easier. So this is the quadratic formula, but notice this has to be written in standard form. So we want to have ax squared plus bx plus c equal to 0. So we need to have 0 over here, and then we can plug these numbers into this formula. So right now you will have the formula to reference, but eventually you need to memorize it, and I'm going to show you a song tomorrow that'll help you with this, but know that this is something you do have to know. Alright, so if we have this equation, x squared plus 5x minus 104 equals 0, from this we can find a, b, and c. So a is equal to 1, b is equal to 5, and c is equal to negative 104. So when we plug this into the formula, notice this first part is the opposite of b. So I'm going to have x equals negative 5, and then plus or minus the square root. And typically we're going to do b squared minus 4ac by itself first. So if I take b squared, I'm going to plug in 25 minus 4 times 1 times negative 104. So if we work that out, and you can use your calculator for this part, you should get 441. Whoops. So under the square root, we would put 441 because that's the b squared minus 4ac, which is what we found right here. And then all of that is over 2 times 1. So then if we simplify this, the square root of 441 is 21. So we got negative 5 plus or minus the square. Oops, we already did the square root, so we don't need that. Plus or minus 21 all over 2. And so then we've got negative 5 plus 21 over 2 and negative 5 minus 21 over 2. So we're going to write both of those out. So negative 5 plus 21, you should know, is 16 over 2, which is 8. And the negative 5 minus 21 would be negative 26 over 2, which is negative 13. So we get negative 13 and 8 as our two solutions. And remember, since the degree is 2, then we know that it should have two solutions. Alright, so for this one, we've got negative x squared plus 5x plus 14. So let's go ahead and find a, b, and c. And then b squared minus 4ac. So a in this case is negative 1, b is 5, and c is 14. So when we do b squared minus 4ac, we're going to have 5 squared, we can put parentheses around it if you want, minus 4 times negative 1 times 14. So if we work this out, we get 25 plus 56, which is 81. So now look back at your formula if you need to. We've got x equals negative b plus or minus the square root, b squared minus 4ac, all over 2a. So when we plug in, we're going to have the opposite of b, which positive 5 becomes negative 5. And then we've got plus or minus the square root. Remember, we already did b squared minus 4ac right here, which will be 81 all over 2 times negative 1. Then you know the square root of 81 is 9. So we've got negative 5 plus or minus 9 all over negative 2. So that gives us the two answers, x equals negative 5 plus 9 over 2. And that's from this plus or minus. Or x equals negative 5 minus 9 over 2. And sorry, my writing's a little interesting at certain parts. I'm using a different recording program, so I'm trying to get used to it. So that would give us 4 over 2, which is 2. Or we would get negative 14 over 2, which is negative 7. So our two answers would be positive 2 and negative 7. And that would be it. So all you're doing is finding a, b, and c, figure out b squared minus 4ac, and then plug it into the formula. Alright, so this one's a little bit different because if you notice, we're not in standard form. So in order to get to standard form, we need to move everything to one side of the equation. And it's totally up to you which side you move to. I'm going to just subtract 9. And so we'll have 0 equals 7x squared minus 2x minus 9 and go with that. So from that we know a equals 7, b equals negative 2, and c equals negative 9. So notice you take whatever sign's in front of the term with the coefficient when you're figuring out a, b, and c. Then if we figure out b squared minus 4ac, that would be negative 2 squared minus 4 times 7 times negative 9. So that would be 4 plus 252, which would give us 256. So then if we come over and plug that all in, remember again, negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. So remember, we're plugging in the opposite of b, so since b is already negative 2, we'll plug in positive 2 plus or minus, remember we already did b squared minus 4ac over here. So we're going to plug in 256 all over 2 times a, which is 7. So then that would give us 2 plus or minus, what's the square root of 256? You should know that's 16 all over 2 times 7 is 14. So we've got x equals 2 plus 16 over 14, and x equals 2 minus 16 over 14. So 2 plus 16 is obviously 18 over 14, and we want to simplify this because we always simplify our fractions. So that would be 9 over 7, and 2 minus 16 would be negative 14 over 14, which you know is negative 1. So we get x is equal to 9 over 7 or negative 1, and those will be your two solutions. Alright, so when we're doing problems using quadratic equations and we're using the quadratic formula, b squared minus 4ac is called the discriminant. And this is special because it tells you how many solutions there are. So if we look at this graph here, we know that this would have one solution. If I had a graph that looked like this, you know that has no solutions because we determine the number of solutions based on how many times it passes through or touches the x-axis. And then if we had an equation or a graph that looked like that, we know there'd be two solutions. So this number tells us how many solutions there are. So if we work out the quadratic formula and we get a positive number, like before we got 256, that tells us that there should be two solutions. If I was to work out b squared minus 4ac and I get 0, that tells me there's only one solution. And then if I work it out and I get a negative number, that tells us there's no solution. Think about it. Can we take the square root of negative 4? No. For us right now, that means there's no real solution. So that wouldn't be possible. So just know the discriminant tells you how many solutions you're going to have for that equation. So if we look at this equation, we need to get this into standard form first. I'm going to move everything to one side. So I'm going to add 3p squared. And I'm going to subtract 5. So if we do all that, those are gone, we're left with 0. So 4p squared plus 3p squared is 7p squared. Minus 3p minus 5 because they are not like terms. Alright, so we know a equals 7, b equals negative 3, and c equals negative 5. And then we can go ahead and figure out b squared minus 4ac. Well, that would be negative 3 squared minus 4 times 7 times negative 5. Running out of room. Which would give us 9 plus, I think, 140. So this is equal to 149. So from that we know, since this is a positive number, that there should be 2 solutions. And so when we work this out, if we were to only get 1 solution or no solutions, we know we did something wrong, either in finding b squared minus 4ac or in our work actually working out the quadratic formula. So we got negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. So negative b, b's already negative, so the opposite would be positive 3 plus or minus the square root of 149 all over 2 times 7. And so if we work this out, 149, I believe, is not able to be broken down and simplified, but you can see if you can figure it out. Maybe I'm wrong. So then we'd have 3, let me get my pen. 3 plus or minus the square root of 149 over 14. And so to figure this out, we would have our 2 answers. We would have either x equals 3 plus the square root of 149 over 14, or x equals 3 minus the square root of 149 over 14. And so in the book, a lot of times it says to get the answer and round to the nearest hundredth. So what you would do is type each of these into the calculator separately, and you would find what the decimal approximation is. So for this first one, you should get that it's approximately 1.09. So you can try that in your calculator to check. And then for the second one, you should get that it's approximately, let's see where I have room. Well, let's just go down. So it's approximately negative 0.66. So plug those in your calculator, make sure you get those decimal approximations, and if not, y'all can try to help each other out. But unless it says to get the decimal, you don't have to. But if it does, use your calculator to figure that out. Alright, so these last 2 examples, I want you to work out and compare your answers with each other, and we will go over them in class tomorrow. So I also want you to answer these wrap-up questions. So what is the quadratic formula? Just write out exactly what it is right here. List the 4 methods we know to solve quadratic equations. And I want you to think about when it's best to use each method. When is it better to graph? When is it better to factor? When is it better to use the quadratic formula? Think about that. We're going to discuss that some more tomorrow. So in the meantime, after you finish those questions, I want you to complete this assignment. Make sure you notice it is just the evens. And if you finish this, you need to turn it in. If you don't, then you need to complete it for homework. And we'll go over all of this tomorrow in addition to everything from the weekend. So make sure you're on task. And if you have questions, you can try to ask each other, but you should be able to do this. I know you can. And I will see you tomorrow. Good luck.